Hello everybody, welcome to the week in Marvel Avengers Alliance. I'm your host Dave Dawn here on G4G, and today's background soundtrack is brought to you by The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. Not a game that I've ever played, but the soundtrack happened to come up after my Metroid soundtrack for some streaming today, so I'm letting it roll. So what do we have here today in the week in Marvel Avengers Alliance? Well, we've got about 1 week left on PvP Season 28. Very interesting season so far. We'll talk about it more in the wrap-up video in a week. But as a general precursor, so far what we're seeing is we are seeing a lot of Kurth still. Colossus and Emma have faded off a bit, but Colossus is still going strong because honestly he's a good tank with no real weaknesses other than maybe exhausting him. Kurth is still going strong. Powers are, of course, still going very strong. Angrier is making an appearance. But honestly, folks, I gotta tell you, don't run Angrier on defense. Enchantress is about the only other thing in the game that I think is as squishy as Angrier. I have no problems wiping Angrier off the map in the first round, if not maybe the early second round. He's squishy. I don't know why, but he is definitely the easiest to kill of all the worthy. When Kurth gets her Fear Me out, obviously he's taking less damage, but I'm not impressed with Angrier on defense. Really not. I have experimented with 2 PvP teams this week, not in real PvP play, but in practice, and they both have worked out very well. One of them is already up on YouTube. It's Spitfire and Hogun. They worked out extremely well. I tested a team today on the stream, and that video will be coming out separately, and that is Kraven and Morbius. They basically did exactly what we thought they would do. We have a new PvP task, and that's fight 25, win 10, win 4 in a row. And you get 40 for it. By the way, guys, practice does count. A lot of times, everybody flinches whenever we see the lockbox task come up, because they're like, oh god, I'm going to take a lot of defenses overnight. Remember, you don't have to do these in legitimate PvP. You do get this for practice. So I got the 4 in a row and maybe 6 out of the 10 in regular, and then the other 4 came from practice. So you don't necessarily have to break your back doing legitimate PvP for these tasks. You can do practice runs. Yeah, you still gotta win for the win 10, but you know what? Just practice away. If you're down in gold and you're struggling and everything like that, just use practice and keep at it. So I'm having a really, really good season so far in terms of my offense. Yeah, by the way, I'm clearly not in Vibranium. I've only lost 3 times on offense, and for me, that's phenomenal. Very, very happy with that, because I've checked my other seasons, and by other seasons, I would definitely be in double digits at this point. So last night I managed to get Electro, and Electro is a lot of fun. Obviously, we all don't really know how he's going to show up in the meta because of the shock foil ISO, but he is a ton of fun just having a level 2 and a level 1 on him. He's a good late match guy. He ramps up in his damage to the point where, you know, as the fight goes on, he actually gets stronger. Most blasters go for like the first or second round kill. Electro is a nice, slow, steady burn. And I think it's going to be very interesting to create some team-ups for him. Thor is one of the ones that immediately comes to mind. And obviously there's Victor and Beta Ray Bill. But thinking outside of the box, I think I like Thor for him. My tacticians are now finished again and are all up to 15. I've got a blaster training here in Quicksilver, so I'm going to try to cap out my blasters, and more on that in a moment. So my Lizard and my Kraven are all 15. Kraven is generally kitted out over here for PvP, other than the fact that I would want to get one more ISO for him on Hunter's Thirst, I would probably be going with Restore Stamina on Hunter's Thirst also. You can also slot it on his trap move. So, haha, Yugi, you've activated my trap card. Ta-da. Actually, that's really what it is with Kraven. You do activate his trap card when he lays these down. But yeah, he restores stamina with this. And let me tell you guys, and you'll see this in the Morbius video, Measured and Grit is a phenomenal combination for Kraven. Kraven is very much PvP viable with the Grit ISO and the Measured ISO. And you'll have to stay tuned for the video on him specifically to find out why it works. But it works really, really well. I have Vorpal over here. I have Lock On over here. But honestly, they both could be Vorpal. And they would work. Did get to see a Lizard in PvP this week on defense. Did actually get to see a Bucky while running practice with Kraven and Morbius. But the Deb shut him down and then he was gone. Last week, I tried Angrier and Carolina Dean. Was not that impressed. They never made it to a video on YouTube because they didn't impress me as much as I had hoped. So, yeah, my change buttons are a little messed up over here. It looks like a censored bar, like Psylocke's tits are censored over here. Sorry, guys. Olivia Munn is getting censored. Nothing I can do about it. Death to free speech in America. Sorry. So there's all my tacticians are up to 15. My blasters are getting there. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blasters with Quicksilver training. So 6 blasters. Probably would go for the generalists right afterwards because they would be so easy to cap out and be done with them. And then it's going to go Blaster, Bruiser, Scrapper, Infiltrator. Key infiltrators for me are 15 already. Enchantress is up there. Fandral is up there. Gambit's ready to trade to 15 if I wanted to. Morbius because I was experimenting with him. Maybe Bucky. Bucky might be my next infiltrator. A-Bomb is also a lot of fun. So, Chapter 10 continues to roll on. I unfortunately have not been able to get any of the gear yet, but I have been able to get a lot of ISOs from the fights over here. This is bugged. I actually have this complete, as you can tell, because I have Angrier, but been farming a lot of 3. 2, 3, and 4 are definitely my big ones, and then 6 comes after that. I don't do 1 and 5 quite as much. 3's got the Ionic Devourer, which is really good. But remember, people, it isn't subtle and it isn't stealthy. It is a little risky to use. I have run into several agents where it was on their gear set for PvP. But I've only actually run into one agent that managed to successfully use it. And then once he used it, he was actually spamming it. Which was kind of sad. So I don't know that the Ionic Devourer is working so well for people's defensive teams. I think it's in a really good spot for offense, because there's definitely a lot of healing going on. When the Spec Ops comes out, there's rumors that the Spec Ops set is going to introduce a lot of healing from it. So the Devourer and Despair and Fatal Blow, all that's going to be pretty important going forward. I like farming this one to try to get that ring. And of course the Ultron one has that great little Singularity Matrix over here, which I also want to pick up. A lot of gear. Just a ton of gear in this chapter that is really worth farming for. And then the Maximus Perplexing device, the challenge mode of that also would be really, really nice. So we have the ISOs in the store. Now that we've had about a week for them to settle in, how are these ISOs working out? What is the best application of some of these? How have they been after a week of being out in the wild in PvP? Well, let's take a look. So the Flame and the Frost Foil have not really shown up. There's no real need for these. The Shock Foil, of course everybody stuck their hands in the garbage bin and pulled out Shock Foils because of the Victor Beta Ray build teams. Honestly, I have found that Victor and Burb have fallen off for me. I don't see them in PvP as much as I did about a week ago. Pox foil I think is very good, and there is an application of the Pox foil that people are forgetting about that I think is a very smart way of running it. If you run this with the signpost, you will no longer be affected by the signpost poison, so you have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Blood foil, honestly, pretty solid. I think there is a lot of applications for blood. It's decent on Kurth because bleeding is one of the things that hurts her. Spitfire would be good because if you can't get rid of Spitfire in the first round, a very common thing against Spitfire and Quicksilver is bleeding. And also there is agent gear that causes bleeding on the agent. If you have the Grimoire that puts flanked on everybody and you equip your team with the blood foil, you would be flanking the entire enemy team and you would suffer no ill will on your own. You could of course also run like the techno-organic endoskeleton and the block bleeds on the agent and then just put blood foil on your other teammates. Single target attacks gain rising up. I don't see this too much on defense, but this is now what I'm using on Angel, and it works out really, really well. It also has some very good applications on Quicksilver and Spitfire. More Spitfire than Quicksilver. I see Spitfire tends to favor her single target over her AoE by about 75%, whereas Quicksilver it's about 50-50 if he AoEs or singles. Single target attacks gain grit. Yeah, that one is really, really big, and it's also really big for negative reasons. Yeah, cause reasons. Not gonna get into it, but the grit ISO is good, and it is also good in a very bad way. The Stalwart Forced one. Single target attacks gain a shield. Don't see this that much, but honestly that could go well on like Victor and Beta who do their own, and at the lower levels of PvP, if you're running Invisible Woman and try to keep your team clean, I can see slotting some of these to always keep your shield up. This may not be a Spartan level 300 or Adamantium or Vibranium kind of ISO, but honestly golds, diamonds, low Adas could probably make some really good use out of this, including those who are not Spartans. Single target attacks gain desperation. So that is basically the lower the hit points, the more damage you do. Not really seeing this one be a factor. Single target attacks gain measured. Phenomenal. Everybody needs to get at least one or two of these, I believe. This is a very good ISO that has phenomenal applications. Spitfire, of course, being one of them. Starts combat with Protect. You need to know what you're doing for this one, but this could be good for somebody who you know is going to tank anyway, but might not start off tanking, like Colossus could make good use of this. Thing could make good use of it. Maybe Hulk, especially Age of Ultron Hulk, if he's protecting in the beginning and gets tons of Hulk ups. Yeah, he's going to go crazy. So there's some good applications for this. This is not a bad ISO. Starts combat with Back for More. This one has made a huge impact in PvP. Lots of people are running this. People are running it on the Agent. People are running it on heroes that they don't want to die, like Kurth, Pesty. Very good ISO, and it of course sets the trend to start bringing despair to PvP. And if I say to you, I want you guys to see if you can remember what movie this came from. I hope you do, because you're all, if you're watching this, you're all fellow geeks like me, but all those who look upon me in despair. You should probably know the line. The rest of it is something like, you will not have a dark queen, but somebody beautiful as the dawn. I'm misquoting that part, but that whole people will look upon me in despair, I hope you guys know what movie that's from. And if you do, put it down in the comments. Starts combat with survival training. This is one that I thought would make a bigger splash than it did. This one isn't showing up. I haven't really seen this, but honestly, pretty solid. Yes, there's teams that can give you this, like the Guardians of the Galaxy teams with Groot, but I am really shocked this has not made as much of an impact. Starts combat with magic warding. Again, one that has not shown up that much, but honestly is very, very good. You can make a semi-eternal agent with this. For those who don't know, the Eternal Agent was somebody who sat phased throughout all of combat. It's not possible anymore because you get the border debuff of intangible, or tangible actually, that makes it so that you can't get phased for a round. Well, with the magic warding one and starting combat phase with like the life blade or the next ISO, it is possible to really seal in your phase, because if you're immune to magic and your phase, you really aren't getting hit, period. So there is some gear and some ISO combinations that can make you mostly eternal, but right now it is actually impossible to recreate the Eternal Agent because of the tangible debuff. Inceptive Intangibility. This one is showing up a little bit more than I would have thought, and it's showing up pretty frequently. It works well. Actually, what this one does is you're not necessarily intangible at the beginning of combat. You are ethereal, which is different. Ethereal means, uh-oh, an attack is coming. Let me phase you. Okay, you've avoided it. You're now phased out. It's different from intangible, which says you're going to start phased and you will be phased until you ruin it. This one says, I may or may not phase you. It's similar to the Glass Tan, the Bell Nemeton. There's a staff you can farm that does this. But this one's showing up nicely. And I personally think you can make a real killer living agent with survival training, back from war, and inceptive intangibility. That's pretty tough to kill. It really is. Or intangible magic warding and back from war, which means that once you got phased, you would be completely untouchable, and if shit really went down, you would be rezzing, unless there was despair. Survival training and resurrection also, I think, work out pretty well. They make you pretty beefy, really livable. So I picked up Electro this week. As I mentioned earlier, I'm having a lot of fun on him. I'm definitely looking forward to doing some new teams for him. I ran into I think it was in an incursion. I ran into a modern She-Hulk in an incursion. She heals a lot. I'm surprised she's not showing up in PvP as much as I thought. I figured a nice staff of Asclepios with her personal ISO and maybe morale boost, that modern Red She-Hulk would be really tough to take down, but she's making no impact. I'm a little shocked. I didn't think she'd be huge, but I thought she might show up a bit. JW, friend of the channel, has mentioned he ran into 2 people running Misty on defense. That's very surprising. Really wouldn't guess that. Hire for Hero is Hire a Hero. The PDA is still out there a little bit. I ran into 2 back-to-back teams who used it, and it was okay. I mean, not that great. It didn't do the most for the team, but, you know, it was something. So that is pretty much it for the week at Marvel Avengers Alliance. We've talked about Chapter 10. We've talked about PvP. Some team-ups that I'm doing. We've talked about Electro. For the next Spec Ops, as we know, we're getting Cammy. And we're getting Death Locket. Which, the story behind it is, somebody was quoted as calling her Deathlockette, like female Deathlock, and she misunderstood and thought it was Death Locket, like you wear around your neck. So that's how she got her name. She's supposed to be Deathlockette, not Death Locket. Interesting. Not that fond of her artwork. She looks really weird being all thin with the messed up face and that huge arm cannon, but could be very entertaining when she drops. And we do know that the Spider-Gwen is going to be used, and I forgot who else. Was it Spitfire? I forget who else, but we do know that Spider-Gwen is somebody that we're going to need, and I'm not too sure if we're going to get a group boss. I would like it, as the silver's starting to get out of the 20 million, but we did have 2 group bosses in a row, so I would be surprised if they gave us another one. I think we could probably do without another group boss. And of course, today's daily mission was tech users, and it is tech day. This was pretty quick. So, alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the week in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Take a look at the channel for the previous video on Spitfire and Hogun in PvP. And stay tuned for Kraven and Morbius. That will be coming up. And I would say I might do a video on Electro fairly soon. I don't know if I'll wait till 9, but I might. So once my Electro hits 9, I'll probably do a video on him. So, take care everybody. Have yourselves a good weekend. Enjoy this warm weather we're having here on the East Coast. And peace out.